Everyone, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. We have quite a large audience today. Welcome, David. Welcome, Wes, Emily, Nancy, Megan. So many people. Patrick, Doug. All right. I think we're going to get started. Make sure that everyone can see me here. All right. Let's get started. My name is Rebecca Thistlethwaite. I am the director of the Niche Meat Processor Assistance Network. Many of you may be unfamiliar with our work as we've drawn a new audience to our webinar today. NPAN is an extension-based community of practice. We are housed at Oregon State University, but we serve a national audience. And our goal is really to help small meat processors thrive and also build the supply chain for niche meats across the country. So we provide education, technical assistance, one-on-one support for those working in the niche meat supply chain. And we put on a webinar about every other month on topics that our members ask us to talk about. So we have about 1,400 members in our network. Our network is free for anyone to join. We have a very active listserv of folks that are working to help each other. You should all join at the end of this webinar, please. And this topic came up in the last few weeks as many of you are experiencing some pretty seismic shifts in the way you market meat. So today's webinar is designed to serve not only farmers, but also retail butchers and processors who perhaps lost wholesale markets and want to explore new market opportunities. I know that selling meat online and shipping meat is not a panacea. It's not going to solve all your problems, and it comes with its a whole suite of challenges as well. But it's just one more tool in your toolbox as you pivot and adapt to the changing marketplace due to coronavirus and the way that people are purchasing meat right now. I will say a couple statistics that are encouraging, at least if you're a meat seller, is meat sales were up 91% in the last week. And also that 30% of Americans ordered food online in the past month, which is double from a year ago at the same time of the year. So obviously a lot of people are buying food online. And while many of them may be just purchasing from the very large mega retailers like Amazon and Costco, fortunately, there's a lot of opportunity right now for smaller brands and small farmers to get in on this business as well, if you set it up well. So today's talk is really to talk about the nuts and bolts and logistics of setting up online meat sales and shipping meat. I will share a little cautionary tale. So I've been purchasing meat online on and off for the last couple of years, and I won't mention the brand that I purchased from, but normally the meat gets to me within 2 days of being boxed up. And I follow it on UPS to see how quickly it gets to me. And when it gets to me nice and frozen, and the dry ice is still intact. Well, a few weeks ago, I put in an order for a mixed box of pork. And when it got to me, it took 5 days. There was no dry ice left, and the meat was warm to the touch. So that was unfortunate. It was, a complete loss of meat, and I would not feed that to my family. It just is not safe. So there are definitely some shipping delays right now, and that's something to consider, and we'll discuss with our panelists today. So we have 3 panelists. We have Matthew Lawrence from Alabama, who's not only a farmer, but he's also a USDA meat processor. Then we have Adrienne Larrew from Corner Post Meats in Colorado Springs, Colorado. and Brian Brozovic, who is in charge of West Coast sales and online sales for a small farmer-owned meat brand in Oregon called Painted Hills Natural Beef. Before we pop into our speakers, though, I just wanted to share some logistics. We are going to have a good chunk of time at the end of this webinar, which should last about 60 to 70 minutes. We're going to have time at the end for Q&A. So if a question comes up as folks are talking, please pop them into the chat box. Don't use the Q&A box. Let's just keep everything in chat. And I will facilitate going through those questions. You can also, I know there's a lot of experience in this group with shipping meat and doing online sales, so you don't have to just pop in questions, but you can also pop in comments or ideas or tips for the rest of the group. But before we pop into the topic, and hear from our speakers, I would like to share just a wee bit about regulations of shipping meat. Essentially, it boils down to you cannot ship meat across state lines unless that meat is inspected meat. So it either has to be USDA inspected, or it needs to come from a Talmadge Aiken plant or a cooperative interstate shipment plant. There's, I think, 5 states now that are part of the CIS program. And if that plant has gone through the certification, that meat is allowed to cross state lines as well. So those are 3 options for meat crossing state lines. Is it either has to be USDA carcass or box meat, Talmadge Aiken, or cooperative interstate shipment plant. If your meat is just state inspected and is not a CIS plant, it can only be shipped within that state. And then of course, custom exempt meat cannot be shipped, period, across state lines or otherwise. Certainly you could do bulk locker meat and deliver to people's doorsteps. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we are talking about putting meat in a box and using either regional or national shipping carriers to deliver it directly to people's doors. All right, so before we get started, I'm trying to see the chat box up here, make sure there's no questions before we get started. Oh, Matthew asked about retail exempt. Very good point. If you are doing retail exempt butchery and you want to ship across state lines, the carcasses that you're using or the box meat that you're using, that you're processing in your retail exempt shop, has to either be USDA inspected, TA inspected, or from a CIS plant if you want to cross state lines. If you just want to ship within your state, again, it can be just state inspected. All right, so hopefully that makes sense to people. And why don't we get started with Matthew? And I'm going to mute myself.
Hi, good morning. Let me share my screen. Go. That big. Okay. Well, I am glad to be here sharing about our business and our experience. I hope that the trials and tribulations we've been through can be helpful to some. As Rebecca mentioned, we are Marble Creek Farmstead. We're a diversified meat farm in Sylacauga, Alabama. And we have a small Talmadge Aiken USDA processing plant. We do poultry for our own farm, as well as people from Alabama and Georgia, typically. And then we also do, currently we're not doing any red meat slaughter on our facility that's inspected. We are doing custom exempt processing. We currently have another plant doing our pork and beef slaughter, but we'll start back pork slaughter at the end of this month. We had to make some changes to how we did it. We've been doing online sales and shipping for about 3 years. We've had a lot of different changes in how we set up our site and how we manage our inventory. I think probably the hardest part of doing this for us, because we have over 250 product SKUs that are available for purchase on our website. I think the biggest part has just been inventory management, right? So we have a large walk-in freezer, and we've got all of our different products lined up in shelves to make it as easy as possible to pick. Certainly having our own plant makes it a lot easier for us because we can change our product SKUs pretty quickly, or if we run out of something, we can process something that week to try to get something out. And so I think that's really been a big advantage for us in terms of being able to ship. Currently, this is our website, although it's changed even since I took this picture. My wife's been doing a lot of updates on it. We've started carrying a lot of other farms products here recently since we've farms that have reached out to us. But we currently use Shopify, and that's a not very expensive option. We find it to be pretty intuitive. It took us a little while to get it, but now we seem to be able to move pretty well with it. And so you can see we have our website integrated into our e-commerce platform, and all of our different categories here. On the back end, on the top left, you'll see how we enter our products in, and you'll notice over here on the left, under products, I can click on inventory, and I can see what my current inventory is, and I can add product into inventory. And that's what this screen over here on the right is showing, is how I change the inventory. Now, one thing to notice for us, our prices are a little bit higher online than they would be, say, at a farmer's market, or if you bought it here at the farm directly. And we do that because, unlike some platforms that let you put an exact product weight in, we've just found it easier for us to make buckets or variations, as they're called in Shopify. So, for instance, on the butts here, we've got a 1 pound variation in butt. And if we're giving somebody a 3.5 pound butt, and we kind of price for the middle, right? So when we price it, we price for what a 3 pound butt would be. But we've just found that it averages out over time and over a large order quantity. And then for us, it's just a lot easier for us to manage that with a slightly higher price. So here's our high-tech shipping facility. It's in the front of our walk-in freezer. It's not a very large space. We currently use insulated liners. Number comes at me. You can look up online, actually check out what ones that the account rep that supplies us now, and she actually mentioned that they're really behind on orders as well. So just like everybody else, just to get potentially right now. But we've done styrofoam coolers. We've used a lot of different kinds of liners. We tried to make our own, and we've just found these to be the easiest for us. We do a good bit of internet shipping sales, but I will say that we probably do a lot more local delivery. Our experience with shipping meats actually made us really good at doing local delivery in the Birmingham area, which is about an hour away from us. But anyway, we've got two different sizes we use, a 12 by 12 by 12 and a 24 by 12 by 12. You can see the liners here and the boxes for each. I will share the company that we use for our packaging is Anchor Packaging out of Birmingham. They're super reasonable on prices compared to, say, Uline or some other places. If you're in the Southeast, I highly recommend checking them out. They're a great company, great to work with. And as far as the liners, you can certainly look those up in a lot of places online. Okay, so we started with Ticktail, which was a free site originally that came with Stripe. That was great for us. I actually liked it a little bit better than Ticktail. So our site was automatically converted over to it. And Shopify is really great from a marketing perspective. It does a lot with Google AdWords and Facebook marketing, so we like it a lot. Initially, we had a WordPress farm site and a separate e-commerce site, and I highly recommend not doing that. We integrated recently, and that was right as this was starting, and that really made a big difference, I think, in our sales. We have a membership program, and you're welcome to look at our website and kind of see how that works, but we've been very successful with that. I'll just let you check that out, but at a high level, people pay us up front, and we just give them a gift card so they can buy whatever they want, our stuff, somebody else's stuff. But we found that our customers have been really happy with that. As I mentioned, Anchor Packaging is a great place to look for them. And that's a place where we were paying a lot more for boxes when we were buying them through Uline. So I highly recommend price shopping there. For insulation, like I say, we use the liners, but you do have to use a good bit more dry ice. Our shipping has historically been within a 2-day ground region for UPS. We buy dry ice ourselves currently at Publix. We buy it in 10-pound blocks just based on what we need. And then we bring those back to the farm and we break them up and put them into the boxes as needed. If you're doing a lot of orders, it makes sense, the 75 to 100 orders per week, it's going to make a lot of sense, I think, to do the pelletized dry ice. You can get that. They'll just deliver a pallet of it, and it doesn't require refrigeration because it is its own refrigeration, and it'll last for 7 to 10 days. So, but for it to make sense, I think you need to be in that 75 to 100 order range. One thing about insurance, we for a long time used UPS Capital Insurance, and that basically charged us $3.50 per $100 of meat that was shipped. And if it got there 5 days, for instance, like Rebecca's box did, they would cover that. So if it was a $400 box of meat, we would get covered for that. Outside of this crisis, we found that self-insuring was a much more economical way to go. We had some claims, but we just did not have that many. And so, that we just quit doing it. But we actually got an email from them 2 weeks ago that they just basically suspended all of their insurance coverage anyway during this crisis because shipping has gotten so bad. Because of COVID-19, we recently went to only shipping on Mondays. We found that tends to be better. Obviously, if you ship on a Wednesday and it takes 3 days to get there, you're definitely going to miss the window. So I think Mondays and Tuesdays are really the only days it really makes sense to ship personally. A little bit about cost. So for us, it's our 12 by 12 by 12 box is 96 cents a piece. You can see the kind of the math there, but the main point is that we budget 25% of our sales price for marketing, and we just count shipping under that. We don't do a ton of marketing right now. Online, it's been pretty organic for us, but it's obviously recently jumped up a whole lot. And then if on our website with Shopify, it's set up so that if someone's outside of our ground zone, they're automatically going to be charged the second day air rate. And so, we do ship some to the West Coast, which is pretty far from Alabama, but for that to happen, typically people are buying a pretty significant size box. So I'll look and see if there were, okay. So that's everything I've got to share. See if I can see the chat. If there's any questions.
Somebody asked about shipping delays, which you sort of addressed. You're only shipping on Monday, and you can generally get things to people by like Friday or within that week.
Days. I mean, I think with the way that we ship using the liners, if it takes more than 3 days to get there, it's going to be a loss. I think 3 days is going to be about as long as those liners are going to make it. One thing to say as well is that how well you tape the box matters a lot. So, if you are using styrofoam coolers, definitely make sure that you tape the top of the cooler to the bottom of the cooler, and then that you tape the box really well. All the corners and all the places where the box is coming together, really tape that up really nice. And then if you have a cooler that has air in it, that's always a problem, right? So that just generally just the air in it. So if you have a cooler that's not completely full, I recommend putting a paper or some other or foam or some kind of or some material that fills up that airspace. You don't want just empty air in the cooler.
Can you share where you buy your liners from?
I'm glad you asked that question. So I called my rep this morning, and she asked me not to. I asked her if it's okay if I shared it, but they're just so far behind, and they share they supply a lot of the pharmaceutical industry, and so she said that they're primarily focusing on getting those liners to them. I guess they're using a lot of them as well. So she did say she's working on a different package size for farmers, because I mentioned this webinar. So if you want to, I don't know if you want to take it on, Rebecca, or I'm happy to, but if you want to communicate with one of us, I'm happy to. I told her I would get that information to her, and then she'll reach out directly when they have availability.
Great. Well, when I am going to send an email to everyone after this with the recording, and I will send a list of packaging suppliers that I am working on.
Yep.
I can't guarantee they have anything in stock right now, but it's definitely a place to start. Can you talk about how you keep your shipping costs down? That does,
Sure.
seem pretty high there.
Yeah, so we use Shopify's integrated shipping price, which is generally about 50 to 65% of the directly. But we have had negotiated rates through UPS. I know there's some additional aggregators that you can use to try to get it down, but we've decided to just stick with Shopify. It's just so much easier for us to just print an order, buy a shipping label in the order itself, instead of having to go to to a different website to get the shipping order out, the tracking, all the notifications. So it's a little bit more expensive, but we prefer it. We're able to keep up better, and then also it's just a much more consumer friendly integrated experience, right? So again, we're only shipping orders that have at least $150 value, and so for us, the total cost of shipping is not going to exceed that 25% allocation that we have for marketing.
All right. Bob asks, what is the test weight of the box being used?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have a $150 minimum order, and our average, per pound price is about $10. So it's going to be at least, 12 to 15 pounds of meat, and usually at least another 5 to 10 pounds of dry ice, depending on where it's going, right? So it's going to be somewhere between a 15 and 20 pound box in that 12 by 12 by 12 size.
Okay. And then do you put the dry ice inside something like a plastic bag? And do you have a formula for how much dry ice ratio per pound of meat?
So we should have a formula. We don't. I'm the algorithm, right? I come up with it based on my experience, where it's going, what's in the meat, right? So, and it's a great question, right? Because if it's a bunch of whole chickens and bone broths, I probably could send it without dry ice, and it would get there in 3 days if it was going to South Florida. But if it's going to just 1 day shipping and it's got a bunch of sausage and ground, you better believe I'm putting a lot of dry ice in it, because that fat's going to get warm a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Do you have any experience with flat rate shipping or built-in shipping costs, like a box of meat with a fixed price?
No, but I like the idea. I'm going to try it. I like it.
All right. That's what this is all about, is sharing ideas with each other.
Right.
How do you charge the customer for shipping for orders under 150?
So we add a $15, and this recently changed. My wife did it, but I think it's a $15 fee that we charge for orders under 150, but there's a minimum of $75 minimum order.
Okay. And do you use a Julian code on your packaging, or a best used by date? Is this something your customers care about?
It's actually pretty important, right? We do use a Julian date. We have used a pack date previously because we've sold to some other food aggregators. They've asked us not to have a pack date on it, and we do use a Julian date on all of our packaging.
And Nelson asked, do you need to include a safe handling write-up for the dry ice itself, like don't touch with bare hands?
I think that's a great suggestion. We probably should. I'm sure there's some liability concerns with not doing that, so it's would probably be a good thing to do.
Bob is asking a lot of technical questions about your boxes. By test weight, what is the corrugation strength, like 100-pound test weight corrugation?
I'm not sure the answer to that question. I will say they're double corrugated boxes, and we use we use not the cheapest tape we can get, right? Like I mentioned, we tape all the sides really well, and then we also, if we're doing the bigger box, like the 24 by 12 by 12, that's across it 3 or 4 times, essentially banding it.
Mm-hmm. Does UPS or whoever you use charge extra for dry ice shipping versus gel pack shipping?
No. We drop it off. It's already got a a package on it. I think if I were to try to go and I know FedEx has asked us about dries in the past, and but with UPS, we have a local store that's only open for an hour a day.
Mm.
We just drop it off, and that's the additional.
All right.
Use packing tape.
Okay, a few more questions and then we're going to have to move on to the next one. What do you use for taping boxes? Paper tape or packing tape?
Packing tape.
Okay. And then why did you choose to go with UPS versus other carriers?
Because it was integrated with Shopify.
Okay, excellent. A couple questions about if they're going to get copies of this presentation. Yep, we are going to send an email with the recorded video to everyone. So we're going to move on to the next speaker, and I'm going to save some of these questions for the end. So thank you so much, Matthew. And we are moving on now to Adrienne. Adrienne, if you want to queue up.
All right. Hello. Let me share my screen here. And you'll notice some crossover from what Matthew just talked about, as we also have a website. Ta-da! Okay, there we go. Awesome. So talking about shipping your brand, you can see actually in this picture over here with the four of us, what Matthew was talking about like fully taping a box along the bottom and all that fun stuff. So that kind of gives you a visual there. So how do I go to the next slide? There we go. Whoopsies. All right. So for we offer kind of 3 different ways to purchase. So one is our ranch to kitchen flexible subscriptions. So we decide what goes in that box. The customer can adjust the interval or skip based on their schedule, travel, all that fun stuff. Not that anyone is traveling right now, but so that's very important that it's flexible. Through Shopify, we use a recurring billing app called Recharge, and that helps manage when it's supposed to come up. So it just automatically pops up as an order, which is awesome. A great thing about subscriptions is that it's a known cash flow and inventory management. It helps us move some cuts maybe that aren't selling as well, that we have an abundance of. It works out great for that. It does take a little bit extra effort on the inventory side and planning what goes in there so that it's a balanced box as far as like, you know, grind versus prime cuts or slow cooking cuts, and then the value of that. But it is an awesome way to keep things moving. And a lot of customers, their biggest issue is remembering to order. You know, their freezer gets low and all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I'll just swing by the store, which obviously with COVID-19, a lot of that has changed. But the reducing that remember to reorder piece is awesome with subscriptions. We have pulled some of those off of our website right now because there are so many new customers who would have never purchased from us previously, and they sign up for a subscription, and the fact that it's an unknown box, even though what we put in there is an awesome mixture that our normal customers think is wonderful, it's kind of overwhelming for some of our new customers. So we've been trying to gear them towards our third option, which I'll talk about here in a sec. But just keep that in mind of where everyone is coming from as a customer right now, and that suddenly there are people who are buying from Corner Post or other meats businesses like what you guys all have, who they would have never sought us out previously. And so that does create some customer service pieces, which I'll talk about later. Okay, so our second type of orders is a custom one-time order. So that is the customer browses the website, they pick and choose exactly what they want, pay for it, it gets shipped, it's kind of a one and done. It's very easy for inventory because exactly what they purchase gets pulled out of inventory on Shopify, but it can be erratic or fad-based and kind of difficult to predict what's going to sell. And that takes a little bit more effort on the customer side for them to like go through and browse and think about, oh, do I want a flat iron steak, or do I want a Delmonico, or do I want a Denver steak? So that puts a little bit more effort to the customer. The third thing that we offer is our assortments, and those are predetermined published assortments. So it says this is a $100 box, and you get one sirloin steak that's 1 to 1.5 pounds. You get 2 packages of ground beef, and so on. So you hit kind of that easy one-click ordering, but for the customers that are a little bit less adventurous, that's an easier purchase for them because they know exactly what they're getting. And so right now, you've got to remember that customers are totally bombarded. A month ago, they would have been bombarded with options in the store of what, oh, should I pick this brand over this other brand? And now they're just bombarded by everything that's going on in the world. And so trying to make it as easy as possible for them, but also thinking about your strengths and your interest. So if you hate Excel spreadsheets, I would not recommend doing a subscription or something that's going to take more calculation or coordinating on your end. On the flip side, if you love putting together custom boxes and things, then subscriptions might be a great thing for you. So just keep in mind that you're not asking something of yourself that is going to set you up for failure. And then, okay, so some basic is that we are meat for people who give a damn. We use a Shopify website, similar to what Matthew said, that we started with some other options, landed on Shopify, and really like it. A great thing about Shopify is that it's a pretty basic functioning website with a lot of apps and things like that you can add on in order to better fit you. One of those things is that it integrates with QuickBooks Online. So from an accounting standpoint, it's wonderful and very easy to keep track of that. Also kind of reiterating what's already been said is that inventory is managed on Shopify and auto updates with each purchase. We do keep an additional spreadsheet for our warehouse backstock, and that's on Google Drive. I take a tablet with me when I go to our backstock warehouse, and then I can update that spreadsheet. But I definitely echo the fact that inventory management is frustrating at best, and I'm a very black and white, like Excel-minded person, and so even I get frustrated with it. So just again, kind of keeping that in mind of how to simplify things. So this is the facing side of our product page. So this is what they see. You can see that we have 2 different options. So we have a 1 pound package and then a 5 pound bulk package. That's actually something that used to go to our chefs. And now that our wholesale sales has dramatically reduced, we started offering up some of these bulk packages to our home customers, and that's because they have that peace of mind that they've got meat in the freezer. They can thaw 1 package and make a few different meals for the week. So that's a good option. So then on the back side, this is what the product looks like for us. On the back side, you can see it's super easy to like adjust your text, to put in a picture. And then down here, these are the variants that were mentioned previously. So we also do similar to what Matthew was talking about, to where like our pork chops, we have a 1 to 1.5 pound packet, 2 to 2.5. So that's how we have figured out how to keep it so that we're not overcharging the customer, because there's, you know, a 1.5 pound variation, but we're also not screwing ourselves. So it's a little bit harder on the inventory side because you've got to like group these weight classes, but it does set your customer and yourself up for success in that they feel like they're actually getting what they're paying for, and that you're also not over or under serving them on that. So just something to keep in mind on the inventory side. Okay, so then additional basics. So we also use UPS. Yes, it integrates with Shopify. Part of that was previously we used an app, and we had a PeriShip account, which is one of those aggregators that can help you get volume discounts. So PeriShip is one that we've used in the past for FedEx. So you have like a sub account of their master FedEx account. And so then you get in on some of their volume discounts, which is a good option. It does add a few additional steps, but it's nice when starting out that you get those volume discounts that you would not have yourself directly. Unishippers is a UPS equivalent. And then we now have kind of graduated from those two and have a Shopify account that handles all of our shipping. And so we get kind of that volume discount direct through Shopify, which has been awesome from just a streamlined piece, both for the customer and for us. But that other little tidbit is to remember the value of your dollar as a business and who you spend it with. Is that, so we started off, we had FedEx, and our local FedEx driver was just crotchety. I mean, she was horrible. It was so frustrating to see her and be like, our entire hard-earned money, effort, everything that went into this box to go to our customers went into the hands of this just cranky, overdue for retirement FedEx driver. And so because our guy is like Mr. Rogers, and he's wonderful, and he goes out of his way to serve us. And so I think recognizing the value of your dollar investment and the impact that other people can have on you. So that's just like a little anecdote of yeah, just be mindful of who you let into your world. Anyways, I guess from a financial standpoint, we were able to get to where the two prices were pretty comparable as well. Okay, so along with shipping labels and whatnot, is that a game changer for us was that we bought a Dymo 4x6 label printer that prints out all of our shipping labels, and then they stick directly onto the box, which was awesome. Used to, we would print them out like on an 8.5 sheet of paper and then fold them in half and put them inside like the big plastic sleeve. And as you start streamlining all of those little bitty steps and start shaving, 15 seconds or a minute off of each box you pack, that can really allow you to scale. So that was fantastic. I know we're talking about shipping, but just a side note that we do offer local pickup. We tried to put it as the very last option on our website, and yet somehow there's probably 3 to 5 people every week who unintentionally select local pickup when they intended to do shipping. And then it's a fair amount of extra customer service steps in order to follow up with them. We charge them shipping, a $20 shipping fee after the fact. So just be mindful how you set up your website, that it's pretty intuitive for the customer, who has no idea how to operate your website and is probably very distracted by some other thing when they're purchasing. So just think about how you set that up. Like ours actually says, whoa, you're coming to the ranch to pick this up. And we still have people who accidentally pick it. So just think about that as you set that up. Okay, so this is a picture of one of our boxes. So we use this paper-based curbside recyclable liner. It's from MP Global in Nebraska. They too are completely overwhelmed. They're a minimum of 4 weeks out for pallet minimum orders, which is like, I think it's 75 is in a pallet of a 16 cube box, all the way up to like 250. So they're very overwhelmed, but they are wonderful to work with normally. The thing that us and our customers really like about this, it looks like pretty earthy. We have a lot of customers who give a damn about the environment, and that's why they're seeking out a more mindful meat source. So for us, we've never gone with styrofoam shipping anything. That was a big deal. We've tried a few different of these recyclable or biodegradable and really, really like this for the look, and it has an insulation value of R6. This is a 1.5 inch liner, and so so it keeps things good and cold. We really like it. You can buy something comparable-ish off of Uline, which is super expensive, but it's like 10 liner packs. So that's something we started instead of buying a pallet of each size. So just a tidbit there.
Hey, Adrienne, can you wrap up this slide and then we're going to go to some questions?
Sure thing. So we use dry ice pellets. We get them from General Air or any local welding supply company. You want to limit your dead or empty space in the box, so you'll see that like it's very full. Then one thing just to keep in mind when you're packing the box is we have that 15 with a circle on it. So that's the piece count in the box. This is a very important check. How many items are supposed to be in this box? Double count it, and it saves a lot of customer service follow-up on the back end that you didn't mispack their order. So yeah, we'll go. There we go. Questions. What do you got?
We'll take a few questions for Adrienne and then probably save quite a few for the end. So Tanya asked, what is the mix of your business, subscription versus custom versus assortment?
So it's about 50-50 between subscription and non-subscription.
Okay.
Or yes, prior to 2 weeks ago, that's what it was.
Great. Let's see. Are your subscription or assortment boxes discounted at all?
They do have a slight discount to them. What we try to promote is the convenience and the ease aspect. We try to be very, very mindful that we don't overly promote discounts. Like that's not why you're coming direct to the ranch, and that that discount has to come from somewhere. There are other brands that they just buy cheaper meat, and that's how they're able to give you discounts. So we try hard not to promote discounts.
Yeah, and I would say probably right now it's not necessary. Okay, I'm gonna take one last question for you. What size boxes do you ship in, and what is the liner cost per box?
So we just switched to cube size boxes because they are a cheaper box, and they're a lot easier to get from liner companies. Is if you want something custom to a custom size, is that typically you have to buy like a minimum of 7 to 15 pallets per custom size. I do not know the liner pricing off the top of my head. I'd have to look that up. That's something I could follow up.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Probably, yeah, sorry, I do not have that.
It's okay. I'll try to get it from you and send it in the email that I send to everyone with the recorded presentation. So why don't we switch to Brian now, and I will definitely make sure to get to most of these questions at the end. So hang tight, folks, and let's go to Brian.
Thank you. Glad to be here and glad that everybody else is joining us here today. Let me switch over here to my screen. All right. I'll assume that everybody can see this here, so I'll just kind of keep going. I am Brian Brozovic. I'm with Painted Hills Natural Beef. We're a brand that is out of Fossil, Oregon, and we have a pretty good presence in the Pacific Northwest, West Coast, and then also some metropolitan areas across the United States. We're a group of farmers and ranchers, all family owned, that essentially said, hey, we want to do something a little bit different than the rest of the crowd. And so that's how we got here. Here's kind of just a general outline of what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to kind of walk you through the process, and then kind of towards the end, I'll get to some of the things that we've learned, and then also some of the things that we're looking to do for the future. So essentially, whenever, you know, the folks are ready to come on board and bring on an order, which, as we can all imagine during this time, is greatly, there's been a great increase in terms of the demand. One of the things that we made sure to do, let me see here. I think I can do this little animate here. So if you guys can see it, we made sure to put this little banner up here on the top, which is essentially just saying, hey, look, because of all the complications that are going on with our shipping system, with our inventory, you know, please bear with us. This is not business as usual as we've come to know. And so we're all going to be working through the challenges of this coronavirus and how it's going to affect our supply and shipping. And so please just bear with us. So essentially, folks that ever land here, they go off to our store. And then that just kind of runs us through. Let's see here. Oh, and of course now I can't forward the slides once I started doing drawing on it. Let's see here. Well, what's going on here? Let's see here. Well, let me go back and reshare. Okay, there we go. All right, so when they click on the store, that sends us off to, of course, all the selections that we have. I'll let you guys go on there and take a look at all the selections that we have. You know, basically what we're doing is we're just trying to match what it is that the consumer is really trying to get at this time. We are seeing a change because this has always been kind of a premium product in the past that people that did online orders were really looking for, but now it's kind of becoming more the necessity. And so we're starting to see some changes in terms of what people are looking for, what they're wanting to actually put into a box. So you're able to go in there, add things to your cart. You can go in and change your quantity on it. There's also some explanations down here. You can see down on the description that essentially what we're going to give you is we're going to give you a thick cut bone in. So something that's, you know, some other folks have said in previously is we're not going to try to sell this exact by weight. What we're going to do is we're going to sell this as a piece count. We're going to sell this by the unit. We work with a processor that gets us a very tight spec on it. And by doing that, we're able to simplify the process, simplify the inventory, and still get the consumer exactly what it is that you're looking for. One thing you'll also see down there that we had to add in is we are shipping out everything frozen, of course, and we do only mail out on Mondays and Tuesdays of every week, and that's to try to keep everything from getting snagged in the shipping system. Occasionally, we might have to kick out a Wednesday delivery, but we're always kind of chomping on our fingernails at that, just hoping that it will land on a Friday, even with a guaranteed 2-day ship on it. Because if it pushes one more day, it might just be Monday before the folks get it, and of course, you'll have a claim on it. Inside of each item, you can kind of go in here and see what you know, what sort of shipping options are available. You can see some rates down there. Next day air is pretty expensive. 2-day air is pretty reasonable. It also gives you ability to use different coupon codes, which here you can see that we've used a coupon code to be able to give people 10% off of the cut. This is something that we've been able to use. We've kind of gotten to try to get away from like a blanket discount program into more of like a coupon program, something where we can start to see the traction from it. Because if you're just giving everybody a discount, then you're not really doing yourselves any favors. But if you're using coupons and you're using them as kind of your marketing and advertising area, then it gives you kind of a little bit more of a heads up in terms of where people are funneling in, where they're finding your information, and how they're getting to you. Here's where everything comes down to the consumer. They can put in all their information, credit cards, all that jazz, finish up their shipping. And so it produces this. This is our new customer order that pops up in our screen that they're in our system. You can see down here that it's a payment. Our payment method is we're using authorized.net to be able to do the transactions on it. All combined in terms of the platform and the credit card transactions, we're looking at most, I think it's around 5%. I think it varies just really depending on the tonnage and everything that really comes through the system. But that's kind of the average that we're sitting at, anywhere from like 4 to 5% in terms of overall. So when the order comes in, as everybody else has said, we go down to our local gas location, pick up a pellet dry ice, as you can see there. We do pick it up just by hand, just because orders are really variable at this point, and so we're just kind of we grab what we need and try to minimize any sort of waste on this front, even though it does carry over for you know, if we have extra on Monday, it does carry over until Tuesday, but once you pass Tuesday, then you start to kind of lose some stuff. Here's our current box and cooler that we're using right now. That one is an 18 by 10 by 7 box with a I believe it's a 3/4 inch styrofoam cooler that's made by Aquapack. That's what we're currently using right now. Most small orders can easily fit in the box. Once you start getting a little bit larger order, then we might have to split that into 2 different boxes. And if so, what we do is we have a strapping machine to be able to strap the boxes together and kick them out via UPS. Within, you know, having just a couple of boxes, we're still able to keep it within the size and the weight quantity. And so it doesn't really add any extra shipping to it. But by also doing that, it also minimizes any sort of extra space in the box, which everybody's definitely hit on, is you do not want space in the box. There's a prime example of some meat inside the box. We've got the pellet dry ice inside of it. It is filled up to the brim to the point where essentially that styrofoam lid that's behind it is almost being smashed down to try to minimize any sort of air and space that's in there. And of course it gets a really good taping, as been previously said. And then you can see the invoices kind of thrown on top of the box with all of our checkoffs. This one, you can see that it was only the smoked beef sticks that came out of this shipping location. And then we typically throw some of our POS materials inside of that box to be able to give them some ideas in terms of who our brand is, what we're all about, different social media things, all that jazz. Here's the back end of it. As you can see here, this is kind of 3 different cutouts of some different screens. Over in the left-hand side, the column, you'll see that this is our WordPress on the back end of our website. And we're currently using WooCommerce to do the actual transacting of it. We've chosen them just because it interfaces really well with WordPress. It also gives us the ability to create all the things that we need to also work on the back end with QuickBooks. You can see that there's a lot of different options there with your dashboard, being able to take a look at your sales over time, orders, coupons, put in different coupons. You can create your customers. You got the UPS toolbox. There's a whole different bunch of stuff that's in there, inventory, all that good jazz. Up here at the top, you can kind of see where the order screen lands you, and you can take a look and you can see that there's all orders, trashes, pending payments, completed, cancels, refunded, fails, just a whole bunch. And then typically down below, you'll see all the different information that goes with it. So you can go in there and you can pick up all your different orders from there. And then this is what your order looks like when it comes pop up. You got your items, you've got your quantities in there, and you've got all the information that you've got. Over on the right-hand side of that bottom one, you can see the different processes and the transaction that's gone on. And then down below, you've got your PDF invoices and packing slips that you can all print out. And so it's kind of a one-stop shop to be able to create everything that you need. Here's kind of the invoice as it kicks out on the system. Again, you can see authorized.net is who we're using for the credit card transaction. This is just an example of what gets kicked out inside of the box. It's also what gets used to help pick the box, either this or a packing list. And then each week, we're also doing a weekly inventory and reconciliation with what it is our QuickBooks system is reading in terms of units and weight versus what it is that the inventory inside of the WOO system is tracking. So we're able to keep an eye on not only the system, but also the actual physical count. And so that goes on. Here's some of the lessons that we've learned. Yield. You know, there's some really tight specs that you can get from many processors. We use a couple different processors for our different varying beef brands. We have natural brand. We also have a prime, and we also have a grass-fed brand. So depending on who it is that our processor is, you know, you might find that there's different specs that you can get. I mean, I came across some ribeyes the other day that had no tails on them whatsoever, and that was really great for a food service application if they're trying to do a nice little plating. But in terms of what it is that the consumer who normally shops at retail is looking for, having a ribeye with a little bit of a tail on it is just fine, and it's going to help out the yield. And so lessons that we've learned is just really trying to keep up on who it is that's purchasing the meat. What specifications are they really looking for? Because a lot of food processors that are doing, you know, food service style cuts, they may be doing them completely different than what the butcher is actually going to be doing for them if they're in a physical location. And so matching what it is that they get in more of a retail side from a food service is going to be key to yield. Location, location, location. Boy, is this one big. You know, we used to shop directly out of Fossil, Oregon. And if nobody knows where Fossil, Oregon is, it is in the kind of the middle of nowhere of Central Oregon. And it is pretty far away from most major shipping hubs. And so we were finding problems of having that UPS driver that maybe they showed up, maybe they didn't. And, you know, it sat on their truck all day long before maybe it hit the sort location at night. So what we determined is that we needed to put ourselves onto a major shipping hub. And by doing so, what we did was we found a place where we already had products going. So in terms of the logistics to get these cuts to that location, it was not much more of an impact. But by putting ourselves onto this major shipping hub, we could easily hit anywhere on the West Coast within 2 days, many places within a 2-day ground, which will keep your costs down low. And it easily hits anywhere from a 2-day overnight. We've seen some delays over the years. I actually wouldn't say that we've seen any extra delays over the last few weeks. Maybe it's just because of where we're shipping out of, being that we're shipping out of the Bay Area of California. So, you know, anywhere from Seattle or Oakland can hit most regional centers within easily in 2 days. With that being said, one thing that we also do is we also hand deliver each UPS package to an actual UPS store and have them process it at that location at that time. And so we don't wait for the truck to come and pick it up and then maybe hit the sort that night. When the orders are processed each day, they go in, they're hitting their system at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And from there, they're starting their movement. So we kind of get a jump on it by taking that extra mile and just getting it to them and getting it working on process. Box size. Of course, you want to have a box that's large enough to be able to handle your average orders, plus enough dry ice to keep it cold. We've been averaging anywhere from about 5 to 15 pounds of dry ice per order. And it also depends on where it is that it's going. If we're shipping all the way clear to the East Coast, we got to make sure that we're including enough to make it that 2 days, when a lot of times on the West Coast, we can hit it somewhere within 1 day or a 2-day ground. And so it's pretty easy to do. Some more lessons that we've learned along the way is, you know, the game is changing a lot for this whole thing. Advertising and marketing of the products that we have is definitely going to be the key to success here. We've had some success using discount codes. So using like different social media outlets or influencers to be able to take the skill sets that they have, the specialties that they have, really promote the product, and then use those discount codes to be able to track where your sales are coming from. And then that way, when you're taking a look at where your marketing and advertising dollars are, you can put them towards the places that's actually resulting in increased sales versus just throwing money out there. You know, in today's world, why are we still putting stuff in a newspaper if nobody's reading it? And this is just kind of the same idea, is where's the consumer getting online sales from? Where are they tracking them? And doing direct advertising and marketing campaigns towards it is kind of where it's key. Also in with marketing campaigns is being able to use kind of the fun things that go on in the world. So, you know, right before this whole madness began, we were going to be rolling a big St. Patrick's Day marketing campaign and kind of using this theme around green and using our grass-fed beef. And so it's just kind of creating a buzz and getting people excited for it. Product mix, you know, trying to learn the different buying patterns and then keeping the sufficient supply for them. You know, like I said, a lot of things are changing right now. Everybody's stocking up on ground beef. It seems to be the thing, you know, to do when we're all hunkered down in our houses and social distancing. And so, you know, just trying to see where it is, you know, seasonal shifts, seeing where it is that you need to move steak production, move it away from roast, move it back into grilling season, and then being able to keep the sufficient supply on hand. And then just, you know, following where their demands and trends are going to land. Things that we're working for in the future is we want to improve our box size. We have realized that having a little bit smaller box it's not that it gives us many challenges in terms of costs. In fact, there's actually some advantages that come with it in terms of packing the dry ice in and keeping the boxes nice and tight, but it becomes a hassle because now you're producing 2 boxes or 3 boxes for an order versus a single box for an order. So we're talking about labor and time that's just going into producing those. So that's something that we're definitely improving on in the future. We've dabbled with some different types of boxes. Like I said, right now we're using the styrofoam coolers. We've tried some of these eco-friendly ones in the past. We've tried some cooler bags. We haven't seemed to find much success for them ourselves. So we've kind of stuck with something that we've used for years that we seem to have some mild success for it. Again, with the future for marketing and advertising, just continuing to really find folks and where they're at in this web world. You know, trying to find more direct level marketing and just kind of keep things in front of them, because in the world that we're living in today, there's a lot of options out there. So how do we make ourselves stand out to say, hey, we're the best option for you. We're the premium product, you know, come and give us a shot. Subscription versus meat packs and a la cartes. Right now, everything that we do is an a la carte system, but we have taken a look at doing some more subscription or meat pack base. That is something that we're familiar with some other folks that are doing it, and we find some success. Shipping costs, always trying to find ways to reduce the cost there. We've looked at some rate codes using aggregators before in the past. That's something that we've looked into. We haven't ever really gone that direction, just because we're trying to really build it all up ourselves. Also working with independent fill centers to be able to handle the needs. You know, they typically have lower costs anyways in terms of the labor that goes into it, and also in terms of their shipping discounts. So, you know, once we can get more count up, maybe kicking our products to a fill center to be able to handle that independently, that might be an option. And with that said, there's my contact info. Look forward to some questions if there is any.
All right. Thank you, Brian. We do have a lot of questions. We're probably going to run about 10 minutes over, so we'll try to get through as many of your questions as possible. So if all our panelists can unmute yourself and join by video if possible, so you can answer. What fill centers are you using, Brian?
We're currently not using any fill centers. We have an internal fill center just located inside of that major shipping hub. So everything's internal right now. As of external, we're just looking into external fillers.
Adrienne or Matthew, are you guys using any fill centers?
No.
Not currently. We've interviewed some, but haven't pulled the trigger.
And along those lines, so Brian and Adrienne, you don't do your own processing, you work with processors, whereas Matthew does his own processing. Are any of your processors able to do order for fulfillment as well?
Not very well.
Online shipping has its challenges. I think most processors that we work with want to stay out of the business.
All right. Let's see. Have any of you tried any of the other online platforms like Gray's Cart or Barn to Door or any other ones? Nope.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Sounds like Shopify and WooCommerce is what you've all settled on. Reading through some of the chat, Dusky says she uses a platform called Big Commerce. I haven't heard about that one. Brian, what was your box size dimensions again?
18 by 10 by 7.
Okay. Question for all speakers. What is the average slaughter numbers per week or month for your demand non-COVID times?
We're about 1,000 broilers, about 15 to 20 pigs, about 5 to 10 beef.
And that's per week or per month?
That's a month.
Okay. And Adrienne, about how many are you moving?
So we switched to quarterly semi-loads. We started using a processor that's in Kansas instead of Colorado. And so we take a semi-load of beef and a semi-load of pigs quarterly.
And Brian?
Between the combination of our programs, our Choice Natural Prime, grass-fed, it depends seasonally, but we're probably sitting somewhere around 600 head a week.
For all of you, with the massive increased demand that you're experiencing right now, are any of you running out of inventory, and how is that affecting your production planning for the year? Brian, you want to start?
Online, the inventory for online sales, I wouldn't say are too pressured at this time. Maybe more on the ground beef side, the ground beef bricks, just because a lot of retailers have switched to getting their hands on any form of ground beef or anything that they can grind. So that's probably one of the tightest things right now. For the most part, steaks are still doing good for your online inventory.
Yeah, same for us. We're flying through grind. Part of the hiccups or benefits on the subscription side is I'm trying to plan ahead for our next month, 6 weeks worth of subscription customers, that we're not kind of screwing them over and getting too opportunistic and selling what would go in their subscription. But we've got another pig load headed to the butcher in 2 weeks, and I am very grateful for that.
Yeah, so we're definitely trying to ramp up production. We're going to run out probably at the middle to the late summer if we're not able to ramp up some of our production. We've also, we have traditionally served a lot of small regional wholesale buyers that are super desperate to get meat as well, and so we're trying to balance this very significant increase in retail sales with keeping our long-term customers happy, right? I mean, it's we make a lot more money selling all this direct retail, but obviously we want to keep the current customers that we've had for a while supported and keep them as well. So it's tough for sure.
Another question that came in is about getting customers in the mindset of buying by the unit as opposed to by the pound. How do you kind of work through that? Matthew, why don't you start?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that we get asked a lot, right? Like they go onto our website, they see rack of lamb, it's between a pound and a pound and a half. It's a certain price. They don't complain about it. They do complain if they get less than, right? So if it says it's a pound to a pound and a half and it's 0.98, they want to talk about that 0.02 pounds. So we definitely want to overcut, not undercut.
Adrienne?
Yeah, we're kind of in that same boat. We try to line all that out on the website so that, like, in the comfort of their own home, they can look at that and kind of assess it and whatnot. And so we have found that very few people call us and say, wow, thanks, like that was over. But like you said, they definitely will let you know if you're under. So we try to just be very, very clear about that.
Brian?
Same thing, not really an issue. We try to lay it out in advance and give a safe guesstimate as to what's actually going to come. That way, if it's a little lighter, there's no issues.
One person did ask, this is an interesting question that I might have to follow up on. Is it even legal to sell by the piece because you are potentially gypping the customer by 0.02? pounds or something. Anyone know that answer, if it's okay?
So I'm not entirely sure of all the regulations, but it comes down to an over versus stated. So for example, when you go to your grocery store and you buy something that's a 1 pound chub of ground beef, if you actually weigh out that chub, it's probably going to be a fraction over that one. And it's just because the USDA does allow for variance plus or minus. Of course, you don't want the minus because exactly you'll have folks that'll call it in saying, hey, I got 0.98 and I wanted 1. And so most processors are always going to fill over just by the tad because they don't want to go through that. But there is a variance. And so then when you turn around and you state it, so for example, on those ground beef bricks that you may find in the store, they're not selling it for $3.99 a pound. They're selling it for $3.99 a unit or however much it is. And so it's totally legal to sell by a unit. You just have to be able to fit within the prescribed standards that you've set in place. I'm sure there's a CFR for it. I don't do a lot of processing anymore, so I couldn't tell you which CFR it is, but you can look through all the fun code and find it, I'm sure.
Okay, I'm just going to do a few more questions. What would you say is a minimum customer list needed to justify going online or setting up an e-commerce platform? Any thoughts?
I think I'm probably the smallest shipper here. So I'd say we saw it a few years back as critical for us to be in business in 5 to 10 years, right? We think consumers really want convenience, and the farmers market model was just not going to last before all this happened, right? So for us, it wasn't a matter of what's the minimum amount. It was, if you're going to be in business, you've got to do this. If you're going to do retail, you've got to find a way to be conveniently shipped. So that's one thing. But in terms of like the cost of getting materials in and spending time with it, I mean, even if you're only adding 10 orders a week, I mean, that's a fairly decent amount, and it's not like the packing materials go bad, right? So I think even a small volume can work, and it's definitely a great marketing tool as well.
Adrienne, any thoughts?
I think for us, we did pickup locations originally. We've done farmers markets, and my employees were on the verge of anarchying if they had to fight Denver traffic anymore. And when you start adding up all of your labor or your time into prepping to go to farmers markets or doing home delivery and things like that, like the fact that the UPS truck shows up and loads up and away it goes, that's a really great thing. So I think looking at how you spend your time, how you be most valuable in how you spend your time, I think there's those factors as well outside of COVID-19.
Yeah. I'm going to skip you, Brian, because you're a little bigger. But I will say about packaging not going bad, the biodegradable type packaging is a major attractant to rodents. They love to build nests in it. So it can go bad. It does need to be stored well in a rodent-free environment. I don't know if you've experienced that, Adrienne, but I've definitely seen it. One person mentioned if someone needs an order fulfillment center, please contact WG Provisions located in Ames, Iowa. Great central shipping location for the best coverage of the US. So that's in the chat box if people want to check that out. A couple questions about the rules about crossing state lines. I mentioned that at the beginning, and when you get this recording, you will understand that. And I'm going to just answer a couple more questions. Do you have to put shipping logistics and information in your HACCP plan? Anyone want to comment on that?
So for us, our farm and our processing plant are two separate LLCs. So the once the meat leaves our plant, it's in a completely different place, right? So it's not owned by the plant anymore. So it's not in our HACCP plan, no.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we continually look into, is that what we do at our warehouse versus where we ship it, at what point does it cross over? And that's actually a note that I have to follow up with you on.
Brian, any thoughts?
Once it passes out of the processor's, in our case, once it passes out of the processor's hands and hits their final stage of their HACCP, then essentially what it is our online store is just a retailer following retail rules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One person mentioned about selling by the unit. I'm unsure it's legal to sell by unweighted unit, such as one steak with no size listed. But the overrule is for sure the way to go, at least 8 ounces. So I think that that's probably a legitimate way to go. Let's see. In regards to scaling, I imagine there are a number of factors influencing the decision, but do you plan on hiring more staff and having dedicated fulfillment teams or facility, or eventually working with a third-party logistics company? I think that'll be our last question, and we can go through each speaker. So let's start with Brian.
So we're probably not going to be hiring any more staff because soon after this COVID response, we will probably go back to a regular online shipping model. So right now we're just going to get through the challenges that we have. We do have a dedicated facility and team that already does handle these orders, and they're able to kick those out pretty swiftly. And then moving to a third-party logistics, that's definitely something that we're going to be looking forward as we continue to increase our numbers. If this is something that gets beyond our capacity to be able to handle eternally, and having a fill center be able to handle it, then we'll take those necessary steps when that time comes.
Adrienne?
Yeah, we have a dedicated team that works on this. Prior to this, we were putting together a job description for hiring an inventory manager. So that position is even more important now. And now it's just taking the time to do that. There are a lot of people looking for jobs right now. So that's still on our horizon. We have looked into a third-party fulfillment in the past. One of the reasons why we decided not to do that is that we feel like a major difference between us and ButcherBox, let's say, is that we're high touch and we give a damn. And so if we go with a third-party fulfillment center, can they put that same love and appreciation and gratitude into that box? And if they can't, then does that change our model and our customer base? So we haven't gone that route yet.
Matthew?
Yeah, so from my perspective, given our size and the complexity of what we offer, right? We have like 250 product SKUs. It's a lot. I'm currently picking every order personally, and I'm doing that because, I know my customers. I know what substitutions I can make if needed, and it also helps me keep a really strong pulse on what I need to be processing. I do have new staff I've hired to help check me. So they're going behind me. I've got people that are like making all the packaging for me. So all I have is a pick list. I go in and pick it. So I have people helping fill all of our freezers up, the way that I want it filled in the bin, so I can do it quickly. So yeah, I guess the answer is yes, we've added some more staff for sure. I think if we got a good bit bigger, we would probably look at using a third party potentially. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially with us being located where we are and getting a lot of interest in West Coast shipping. I think we probably would look at that.
So for all the questions that didn't get answered, I'm going to catalog them all and send them to our speakers and try to get those questions answered in the next couple of days. I am going to conclude this webinar for now. I really want to thank our speakers and the audience. You guys rock. Everybody is going above and beyond right now and making sure people get fed. So I really appreciate all your efforts. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.